This image is Saint Kateri Tekakwitha. Kateri actually means Catherine, or was originally Catherine. I'll say more about that in a moment. She was a member of the Mohawk tribe of the Iroquois Confederacy, or Iroquois nations, in the 17th century. Before I say more about Kateri's life, I'm going to introduce a distinction from the Second Vatican Council that's really important for understanding how we think about saints that come from distinctly different cultures like Kateri did. This distinction is what Vatican II refers to sort of as the faith and culture distinction. So what does that actually mean, right? I mean, oftentimes we sort of think of religion as part of culture. Well, Vatican II is going to say that they're not the same thing, and there's an important reason for us to distinguish between the two. The liturgy looks different in different parts of the world today. Right, here's one example, probably from Africa, it looks like, if I were to guess. This one is an extraordinary form Mass, probably from somewhere in Europe, or maybe America. Here we have an Eastern Orthodox or Eastern Rite Catholic liturgy from probably Eastern Europe somewhere. And here we have actually an image from a Native American Catholic church here in the Twin Cities. Each of these approaches Catholic worship in a very different way. They look different when you attend one of these services. And so what this difference helps us understand is that there really is a difference between the faith, which remains the same no matter where you go, wherever you go in the world in the Catholic Church, and a culture, which is what I maybe would describe as the clothing that the faith wears when it comes into a particular place and time. There's a couple of things to keep in mind here. Well, culture concretely affects the way that faith is practiced in a particular place and time. We all believe that Jesus is God. We all believe that God is triune. We all believe in the church. We all believe in the sacraments. But we express these things in different ways. And in that way, even the ones that we might be most familiar with, the expressions of the faith that we are most familiar with, might seem like the way that the liturgy should look. There is no such thing as a pure faith apart from a culture. Any European expression of the faith remains tied to the culture and history of European peoples. So what that means as far as our action in the world, and Kateri's concrete witness, is the way in which she melds the Catholic faith with her native culture as a Mohawk woman. We are called to share our faith, and Kateri herself does so, but we don't evangelize our culture as such, right? We only evangelize our faith. We appreciate cultures. We appreciate our own. We appreciate others. But it would probably be inappropriate to say that we are evangelizing it because of things that we will mention here in a second. Because in the colonial period, right, there was often a conflation of faith and culture, meaning that people who came from Europe thought that in order to Christianize the peoples that they encountered around the world, they also had to give them European culture as well. This could be problematic at times, right? By distinguishing between the two, the church gives itself the tools to say that evangelization and the spreading of the faith is important and good, while also recognizing that bad things happened at the hands of Europeans when they tried to do that. To say that this imposition of culture is in fact a bad thing. So as an example of it, right, we could think of, for instance, the ways in which Native Americans in some instances were asked to speak English and to abandon their native languages, especially in schools, for instance, or to wear European clothing. Here we have an example of, right, on the left, 3 boys who were brought in, and then they cut their hair and they changed their clothes and said, here, now we're going to like fix you up to be proper, I don't know, would they say Christian? Probably. But what they're really doing is trying to make them look European. And another example of the same kind of phenomenon, right, we see in this image over here, where we have a loss of clothing and a sort of transformation of their heritage. Well, again, what Kateri helps us to see today is that we don't need to Europeanize people in order to make them Catholic, right? That we can still spread the faith without imposing our cultures on people. So Kateri, you see here, this is where she was originally from, sort of there in upstate New York. She was born in 1656 as a member of the Mohawk tribe, as I said. When she was 4 years old, a wave of smallpox came through their area and killed her immediate family. Smallpox, again, is one of those ugly realities from the colonial period. At times it was just an inescapable fact that Europeans had diseases that native populations weren't able to, didn't have any immunity to. At other times, though, we also should acknowledge that at times these diseases were spread intentionally by colonial folk trying to kill Native American folks. So after that, she was her family was dead, and she was seriously scarred even on her face from the smallpox that she also had. She was taken in by her uncle, who was the chief of her village, and raised her for through her teenage years. When she was 20, she accepted baptism from a Jesuit missionary. And it was at this time then that she accepted the name Catherine, or as she pronounced it in her Mohawk tongue, Kateri. And while at the same time, she had also been putting off marriage in her tribe, and realized at this juncture in her life that that she was called to be a virgin. And so she took a vow of virginity at the age of 20 in imitation of the Blessed Virgin Mary, considering herself to be the bride of Christ from that point forward. Now, this decision put her at some odds with her tribe, and so I've moved upwards, northward, right? You can sort of see New York, central New York is still in there, but now we're a little bit farther up, and she relocates up there by Montreal, where there was a community of other Native American Christians who had converted to Catholicism. This was a sort of a tragic turn, because she didn't want to leave her family, but she didn't really feel very welcome there either. And she expressed interest in pursuing a religious vocation up here in this Christian village, but even her priest there it says that the priest thought she was too young. I do wonder, it's not clear, whether there may have been a racial component to the priest's advice that she not pursue religious life as well. So, in her tribe, right, the Mohawk tribe had a male leadership. She was expected to, when her uncle's asking her to get married, she's expected to do so. She saw a duty, though, that her uncle did not see, and that duty was a duty of obedience to God and to Christ. And even though she wanted to be with her people, her fulfillment of that duty made her life very difficult in her own community, her native community. And similarly, even when she transferred farther to the north to go join this Christian community near Montreal, her disfigurement by the smallpox that she had from a child, and perhaps, like I said, her nativeness itself, would have put her at the sides or the margins of this community as well. Right? She's like in between the two. This is like what's called liminality. You're not really in this group and you're not really in this other group. And this made her life difficult too. So what do we take from this, right? What do we take from Kateri's struggle to be both authentically Catholic and authentically Mohawk or Native American? Well, we should probably recognize that Christianity is not going to be about making our lives easier. It simply isn't the case. Kateri's life was not easier because of her Christianity. Living our faith puts us at odds with others around us, even those people that are close to us. But like Christ, we have to embrace the difficulties that we encounter. And Kateri teaches us how to confront and overcome these obstacles to our vocations that, again, can even come from very close to us. She helps us to see what it might mean to be authentically Catholic and, again, authentically Native American. Now, in the image that we have from our artist Aaron Wee, you'll see two particular images. You'll see lilies. Lilies, there are some species of lilies that are native, again, to the northeastern United States. The lily is also a symbol, as you can see in the background image, of Mary and of her virginity as well. So because of Kateri's imitation of Mary, the lily is an image that is often associated with that, her vow of virginity. Then, on the other hand, we have these three upright feathers, or, it's called a castowa. I might not be pronouncing that correctly. It's a symbol, though, of the Mohawk nation, and it's obviously then a piece of evidence for how she continued to hold her own nativeness near and dear to herself, right? She, as I say, and you'll see in the other introduction, the written out one, it says that she engaged in self-mortifications because she was distraught by the fact that the rest of her tribe didn't convert to Christianity. She sincerely desired to remain one with them. A final piece of resource then. There's a few books out there you can find about Kateri. This one was published after her canonization, and so it'll be sort of up to date with the most recent sort of findings about her life. And again, you can go find other things out there as well that will tell you more about Kateri's life these days.